broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free, the home of the brave?
That's great.
Please be seated. Good afternoon and happy Father's Day. My name's Peter Kariva, and I'm the director of the Institute. Obviously, today is about the students, the graduates, but it's also about the family and the friends that are here. And I just want to emphasize what an accomplishment it is for them to be here today. I don't know if for the parents out there, I don't know if your kids tell you how easy you had it and how hard they have it, but it's true. My kids told me that all the time. So I'm guessing, looks like many of you were in college in the 80s, maybe? So in the 80s, tuition for UC for residents was $1,200. It's $13,000 now. Talk about competition. In the 80s, over 70%, often as high as 78% of those that applied were admitted to UCLA. Now it's 14%. And remember dating? Some of you may remember that. Pretty simple in our time. You know, in the US today, there's over 2,000 online dating applications. We couldn't even figure those out. So the point of that is that these students have thrived and succeeded in a really complicated and a changing world. And they picked a major. I mean, you couldn't pick a major with a bigger challenge than to save the planet that we kind of messed up. And so you should feel very proud of what they've done. And I want to start by introducing our commencement speaker, Michael Martinez. And he's going to tell you the story about Compost LA, and I don't want to spend too much time because he's humble and he didn't want me to spend much time. I'll just say, I'm risk prone. We invited him even though we knew that he could, his wife could be having a baby today. Well, his son Diego was born yesterday, so happy Father's Day. And I'll let you tell his story, but just think about what he did. I mean, talk about jumping off a cliff. He was a school teacher, good regular job, and he decided to start his own nonprofit. And I'll let Michael tell you about what he does. Michael.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter, for this opportunity. I'd first like to congratulate you students graduating class of 2019. As excited as all of you are right now, as Peter mentioned, those sitting and a few standing behind you are just as thrilled. As Peter also mentioned, I'd like to reiterate and wish all the fathers, as well as those who serve in that role, a happy Father's Day, while also taking a moment to recognize the sacrifice that each of you had to make in order for this day to come. This Father's Day obviously is especially important to me as my son, as Peter mentioned, was born yesterday morning. And for many of your parents, as well as those who watched you grow up, this day is simply another incredible accomplishment of your overall journey. So with that, I congratulate all of you professors, staff, students, parents, guardians, supporters, for all that you've done leading up to this day. I've had the privilege and honor of starting an organization 7 years ago called LA Compost. It has definitely not been an easy journey, and my goal within the next few minutes is simply to provide you with some encouragement, transparencies of difficulties along the way, while also shining light on the power of creating a strong human network. I also hope to do this by walking you through some analogies of both the compost process and the compost pile. Having been born and raised in Los Angeles, I had the luxury of playing outside most months out of the year without ever having to worry much about harsh weather. Playing outside allowed my brother and I to make several connections to the natural systems that we were a part of. From my grandfather's garden, which oddly enough had painted faces on every rock, to the citrus and avocado trees that my brother had climbed and enjoyed only the ripest fruit. Within our avocado tree contained one of the best gifts I could have ever received as a child. This was in the form of a tree house. One of the best memories I had was spending the night in that tree house with my father and brother. As I look back now as an adult, it wasn't as daring or as dangerous as it felt as a child in the cool 72-degree weather of Southern California, but it left a strong positive imprint in my life nonetheless. The trees which I played, climbed, and ate fruit from were sacred. As a former 5th grade reading teacher, I realized that many of my students did not have similar experiences in regards to seeing how they were a part of nature and the natural systems around them. Having taught in Miami, Florida, some of my students lived 2 miles from the ocean, yet never stepped foot in it. There was a clear disconnect from the natural systems that they were a part of. To create opportunities for connections to be made, I would often use analogies in my instruction. While teaching during the first week of my 2nd year, I pulled out a seed. And what I say to you graduates, obviously you know the functions of a seed in photosynthesis, but to my 5th grade students who were 9, 10, 11, I wanted it to reflect their own journey and their own transformation. I mentioned the seed was just about to begin an incredible journey, a journey that would involve magical transformations and experiences that would shape its growth over time. The seed needed a community to support its growth, from the soil, water, sunlight, microbes, to really allow it to thrive. In the same, I said to my students, you need your family, friends, mentors, teachers, and beyond. Each of these pouring into you will be key to your long-term growth. Along the way, there are situations and circumstances that will obstruct your development, from those poisoning the soil, those choking your roots, to those who block your sunlight and access to water. It is your job to be resilient, to form strong relationships that allow you to coexist and be strong for one another when you are in need of support. I mentioned that everyone's journey is different and everyone's support system is unique, and what you are capable of becoming is truly life-changing. The seed has the potential to become a tree that can bear fruit for others, can provide shelter for smaller organisms, and shade and organic matter for those growing under its canopy. What I wanted to hit home was that their magnificent growth wasn't just about them, it was about those who are positively affected by that growth. Just when I thought I was vibing and making a strong connection with my students, one of my students raises his hand and says, "So Mr. Martinez, so how do hot Cheetos grow?" And the same happened in the room, and I didn't know if he was serious or just playing me, and I said, rather than embarrassing him or throwing him under the bus, I made it a teachable moment. And I asked, well, where do carrots come from? Miami. He said, oh, Publix, supermarket right there. I said, okay, where does Publix get it from? Oh, the big truck that brings it. And I said, well, where does the big truck get it from? And that's kind of where the conversation ended. And what I realized is there was a huge level of disconnect, not just from the food that they were eating, but how they viewed themselves as part of nature. We created a small garden club that reminded students that food actually came from the ground, that water drains quickly in sandy soils in Florida, and that when students plant seeds, they build a sense of ownership, investment, and appreciation for the crop that comes from the ground. The seeds and early idea of LA Compost were planted in that after-school garden, where students constructed their own knowledge, felt like they were part of something bigger than themselves, and started to see the connected systems in the natural world. What was true with my students is really true all over the world today, and we see it. We often forget what is sacred. We have become disconnected from one another and the natural world around us. And we must begin to see ourselves as part of the healing that needs to take place along with the healing of the earth. Starting LA Compost was not easy. Trying to explain the importance of compost to friends and family was extremely difficult. And the small donations we received early on were only enough to build some school gardens. There was a lot of learning by doing, but what was evident from the start was that a small group of people were creating positive change. We were changing the way people viewed both food and each other. From a small collective group of bikers early on, to creating a decentralized network of compost hubs across the most populous county in the country, we stuck and continue to stick to the vision, to connect the people of LA to their soil and each other. The side hustles were real. I'd be lying to you if I told you I was able to hire myself within the first year. It took 5 years of subbing, tutoring, Starbucks, any odd job I can get before I was able to actually pay myself. But now we're a small and mighty team of 13, and I'm happy that my team looks and represents the city of LA which we serve. Our hubs, or where we work, are in schools, churches, museums, community gardens, art centers, housing projects, and we come alongside communities where they naturally do life and allow them to experience the magic that is compost. When Robert Ager of LA Kitchen said that neither food nor people should ever go to waste, it was a perfect statement to explain how the compost pile prevents that from happening. You see, the compost pile takes what some consider broken or imperfect and allows them to participate in the beautiful process of decomposition. The diversity of the pile is made up of organic material that others would often consider trash or not worthy of a purchase, simply because it does not fall under the false standards of perfection that we've created in our minds. Whether it's carrots that are hugging, a lemon with a pimple, or a deformed tomato, the compost pile does not discriminate. It invites the communal imperfections and brokenness of food to transform into something that is life-giving. The compost itself does not ask to be celebrated. It simply is a mirror for what is happening at the community level. People begin to see themselves not as perfect or complete, but made whole through the ability to coexist well in an inhale-exhale relationship with their neighbor. Dr. Von Lee says the earth is not a problem to be solved. It is a living being to which we belong. The earth is part of our own self, and we are a part of its suffering. I truly believe that the problems we currently face are an outward expression of the suffering we've been dealing with inside ourselves. The inner turmoil of fear, greed, and forgetting what is sacred has led to our current state. It's really easy to focus and dwell on the imperfections, the shadows, the dark, or difficult areas to speak in our lives. But I encourage you all students to not be afraid. You have chosen a major and field of work that will require you to be bold and courageous, to think beyond what has been thought of before, and to see things in a new light. If you dwell too much on the possibilities of failure, you're wasting your time. Failure is very easy to get to, and oftentimes achieved much quicker than we'd like. Use these minor setbacks and learning experiences as the feedstock for the compost pile that is your own journey. Keep your focus on creating the changes to the systems that will benefit and bring life to all communities. Remember that the solutions that you all create will have to have people in mind. At LA Compost, we're not working to overhaul how we see organic material in LA overnight. The compost process is not a microwave approach, and changing habits and routines should take time. Be willing to work with and alongside communities you hope to bring new life to, while also understanding the life and power they already possess. Our vision at LA Compost is to create a powerful human network of individuals who are connected to their soil and each other. We often rate a solution based off its size and processing ability, but our small efforts are leading to big changes. This work continues to grow, and we now see ourselves in larger conversations with both the City and County of Los Angeles, as well as the state of California, to reimagine how we look at food. Don't underestimate the power of a connected individual. The systems and networks that the soil food web creates underneath our feet is what we plan to continue to create above the ground. There are many systems and thoughts that need to be pruned, as well as habits and thoughts within ourselves that need to be removed. Recognize and understand your own compost journey, and do not be afraid of decomposition or death to old ideas and practices. Death, as we know, is what gives life meaning, and within the context of compost, you're simply transforming something. There's a short prayer that was meant to honor Oscar Romero, and I'm taking a small excerpt of it, and it says, "We cannot do everything, and there is a sense of liberation in realizing this. This enables us to do something, and to do it very well. It may be incomplete, but it is a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for the Lord's grace to enter and do the rest. We may never see the end results, but that is the difference between the master builder and the worker." I want to say there have been people here before us, and there will be those who come after us. Do something and do it well. In the context of a garden, there will be those, and there have been those, who have already planted the seeds. Those of us, and some of us, will continue to water, and there will be many of us who will spread compost on that ground to allow its growth to continue. You have all chosen a profession where your work and focus will be on others. I encourage you also to continue to search what brings you life, so that you may overflow this goodness onto others as well. In the spirit of Father's Day, I want to say that my grandfather was a carpenter. My father, to this day and for the past 40 years, is an upholsterer, and I consider myself a composter. I love many things about each of these professions, but what I find fascinating is they all see the potential in the materials that they work with. From the piece of wood, the couch on the side of the road that is yet to be transformed and placed in another living room, to the pile of food scraps rotting that will soon be beautiful, rich compost. See people and materials in a new light. See what we consider as waste as a life-giving resource, and finally be compost. Go through your journey, appreciate decomposition and brokenness along the way, and understand your own renewal and transformation, and spread your magic far and wide. Congratulations, class of 2019. To all of us in the room, history has its eyes on us, so let's remind the world what is sacred. Thank you.
You can see why I took a risk on him not being able to be here today. Our next speaker is the student, give the student addresses, Gurjo Kohli.
Before I begin, I just want to say I'm really honored to be standing here in front of everybody and a group of friends that I've known for the past 4 years, and it's been an amazing journey. The land is the chief, the people merely servants. This ancient Hawaiian proverb forces us to relearn the natural relationship between humankind and nature. Throughout modernity, some of us as human beings have falsely convinced ourselves that we are superior to the land. Our efforts to exploit the natural land around us and rapidly drain it of its precious resources, such as lumber and oil for profit, has been nothing short of self-destructive. By harming the land, we are simply harming ourselves. We see the land reminding us of this message through the devastating results of climate change in our backyards: high-intensity droughts and wildfires, rising sea levels, and increasing rates of species extinction. These realities have touched us all in one way or another in our lifetimes, but still, some people are blind to these signs. But not the people in this room. By standing here today, we have all acknowledged that we are devoted to being lifelong servants to the land. These crises and harsh, dark realities can be made amenable through the radiant, dedicated, and aspirational folks ready to walk here today. This service to the land takes many forms. It includes ecological restoration for lands that have been devastated by pollution. It includes advocating for disadvantaged communities that are forced to live in poor conditions due to a refinery or tank farm moving in. It includes educating future generations about what they can do to be environmentally conscious citizens. The service is not done for reciprocity or anything in return. It is to undo the damage done by several generations in the past while preventing and mitigating damage we will or have caused in the present. It is to claim responsibility for our actions and help the planet heal. Most importantly, it is expressing piety for our home. It is offering gratitude to the beautiful sunsets that we've seen on a drive along the coast, respite from the stresses of our lives among tranquil and serene lakes, and sprawling foliage to naturally preserve our biome. Undertaking such a huge task begins right here in our backyard. Over my 4 years here, I've seen such wonderful strides being made in city and statewide goals for developing and sustaining a better environment for the future. I've seen faculty and students actively make an impact on legislation with the mayor's LA Green New Deal. They have accomplished this through intensive research projects with the Sustainable LA Grant Challenges and the California Center for Sustainable Communities. At the student level, we work to make our campus even more sustainable through the Sustainability Action Research Team, trying to optimize current processes in facilities management, or evaluate efficiencies in the current system. Some of us have even worked with UCLA sustainability on campus and the residential life to commit our community to attaining zero waste and achieving carbon neutrality through amazing engagement activities. The best part, all of us are just getting started. Through committing ourselves in the future through advanced degrees or meaningful jobs, we are pushing ourselves to do more to address this problem. Every report drafted, every site investigated, every policy reviewed, every campaign launched will add fuel to this engine of progress. Looking at all the faces in front of me, it's easy to see that this engine is not going to idle or stop anytime soon. Our time within UCLA has provided us with the fundamental tools and skills that we need to get this job done. Now we're going off into adult life to apply these resources to make the world a better place. Along the way, our love and deference for the land and all the people who depend on it will only expand. As stewards of the environment, we will take strides in preserving our land through the writ of policy engagement, ingenuity of sustainable engineering, analysis through groundbreaking research in atmospheric oceanic sciences, ecology and evolutionary biology, geography, and countless more, and community engagement to inspire the next generation of planetary protectors. Following the spirit of our soon-to-be alma mater, we must continue our optimism, but ground it within realism. Our brightness will come from the fact that we can provide complex solutions to real-world problems while motivating all those around us to do the same. Our discussions on reversing climate change will mention the opportunities we have while acknowledging the challenges. Our projects can engage the community on the relevance of eco-consciousness while serving the earth. And so today, I can proudly say that we are ready to be servants to the land. Thank you all.
Thank you for that absolutely fantastic speech, Gurjot. Good afternoon. My name is Noah Garrison. I am the director of the Environmental Science Practicum program for the Institute of the Environment and Sustainability. And it has been my distinct pleasure over the past 4 years to work with this absolutely incredible group of students as they make their way through the university, and to spend the last year as the director of the program that they have absolutely immersed themselves in and dedicated themselves to in solving real-world challenges facing us in the environment. It's going to be my distinct honor at this point to present a pair of awards on behalf of the Institute. Before I do that, I do want to recognize and thank all of the parents and family members and friends and relatives in the audience today. It is certainly, as Peter mentioned earlier, it is a challenge to be a student in these times with all the pressures they face and competition and uncertainty in moving out into the world. It's no picnic being a parent in these times either, and we realize how much all of you have sacrificed and all of the efforts you have made to support your children and family members and friends as they go through college. So thank you so much for all of your help. So with that, I'd like to present this year's Environmental Science Academic Achievement Award. And this award recognizes the student with the highest level of academic achievement in his or her cohort, which is a fairly illustrious group this year. I'd like to first recognize our